I'll just need it here. So I can have it.
I think I printed another one.
Just need this one. Recording in progress.
All right, I gotta make you.
As your microphone.
Yes. Turned it off. Does this mean I won't be able to talk?
Hold on, I'm gonna move my speaker option to the.
I can just go upstairs.
Just give us 1 second. Should be the TV. Did that echo stop? Oh, no. I have to make my microphone. Speaker. Can someone on screen say something?
Not me.
No, no, I'm not.
Susie, could you
Yeah,
say something?
I'm saying something now. Do you hear me?
Okay. Okay, can you, let's use this one, turn off your microphone. You did turn off that. And your speaker.
Oh, it came back on again. Okay. Here's my speaker.
That's not you, is it?
Has the feedback gone away for you guys on camera? Yes, okay, we can be here. I'll just slide this over. All right. You have a camera on? Oh, you do. Okay. Perfect. Hello, everybody.
Good
Right.
evening.
Good evening. And now I have to turn up my speaker so I can hear everybody. All right.
That's good.
Good.
No feedback.
No feedback? Okay. Well, we are going to start. We are one person, two people down at the moment. We still have a quorum.
Before we start, I want to introduce you to my new little guy.
Oh, the cutie.
His name is Honey Bear.
How old?
He's 3 months old.
Okay.
He's very cute.
Okay. All right. Oh, we have people coming in, so we might wait another minute. I'm gonna rename him. Am I co-host? Yes. Oops. No, I don't want to rename Rue. All right, let's see. There's people popping in. I'm gonna give it just another minute, I think. Make sure everybody's in. I don't see anybody. Okay. All right. Oh, one more. You got that? Yeah. Okay. All right. So shall we call ourselves to order? And oh, here comes Kristen. I think we still have a quorum. Kristen's here. The only one we don't have is Rita at the moment. Okay.
And Rita will not be coming tonight.
And she won't be coming tonight. That's right. So it's just us. Okay. So why don't we open it up to reviewing the agenda? Right now we have on the agenda, bring it over here, to review the agenda, public comment, the police study group survey results, review the results of the Shutesbury PD officer interviews. Committee's next steps, review the select board report responsibilities, committee best practices, review our minutes from three of our last meetings, and then schedule our last meeting with a stop at 7:20. So that's what our agenda is tonight. So let's open it up to public comment. Please use the raise hand feature if you have it. Mark, I saw yours first. Go ahead.
I just would like to ask one quick question here. How many complaints has the Shutesbury Police Department had made against them to the select board or anybody else?
That's a great question, and I'm gonna ask Becky to help me, but we haven't had any that I'm aware of. Yeah, and it's public comments. We don't usually answer the question, Mark, so.
You
we'll
don't
have
answer
to-
the questions?
Not always, no. We take the public comments. Sometimes we have to do research to answer questions, and this is one of those. So
Could you be more specific? I'm struggling to understand. Are you asking how many complaints this year? What is this current select board and police department? What is your question?
The current police department, how many complaints have been made against them? I guess it's just a simple question.
I don't have record of any. I don't have record any either, so I'm gonna go with that because we would have handled them. So at this moment,
But we need to.
we need
look
to
into
research
it,
that, Mark, to make
but
sure.
We have.
Okay, so there's nobody's got an answer for that one.
No, but we can look that up. And
None that come to mind.
None that come to mind. I mean, it just seems to me that this is a lot of wasted time here. If there's no complaints against them, why are we doing all of this?
I will take adventure at answering that one because we had a moment in time where we were between chiefs and the select board decided to take the moment to make sure that we were on the right path for Shutesbury and to assess whether the current structure was our best or if there might be another one out there that might fit. So it was a momentary transition time, and the moment arise, the opportunity arise for us to do that. And that's why this group was created.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Gary.
Yes, hi, thank you. I am speaking here tonight to urge the police study group to urge the select board to immediately offer the position of a strong police chief to the Shutesbury Police Department to Kristen Burgess. I feel that delaying this action will only serve to jeopardize police services in our town. In February of last year, the select board charged your group with a review of policing in Shutesbury. The select board charge specifically calls for providing stability in the police force while this happens. In recognition of this inherent risk to morale of the police department, the charges anticipate that this effort would take no more than a few months. Despite this, our police department has been operating in a state of uncertainty for a year. It's a testament to their professionalism that they have continued to function at such a high level, despite the added stress to an already stressful job. I am concerned, however, about the corrosive nature this uncertainty must be having on the department's morale. The questions the select board raise in the charge are complex. Many would require extensive community involvement to arrive at any reasonable degree of certainty in determining the town's needs. Others, such as the shared police chief or contracting for police services, will require an uncertain search for a suitable community or agency to partner with, and then negotiations that may not come to fruition. These are tremendous tasks that could take years to accomplish, and at the conclusion, we may find that our current model best suits the needs of the town. I feel it is important to note, as Mark just did, that this effort is not in response to some failing in our Shutesbury Police Department. We are not operating under some pressing need for change. There is no unique opportunity that we risk slipping by. We have an acting police chief in Kristen Burgess who has shown unwavering desire and ability to work with the community and the select board to provide a wonderful community policing program. She has sent out public statements to all town residents that Asian hate and active anti-Semitism and hate against Jewish people will not be tolerated. Acting Chief Burgess is an exemplary model to all police chiefs. She is well liked and especially respected by our police officers. There is no benefit in continuing the uncertainty for our police department that is currently experiencing. There is little to gain and much to lose in allowing this process to continue to drag on. We strongly encourage the police study group and the select board to end this process and to hire Acting Chief Kristen Burgess as a strong, full-time Shutesbury Police Chief. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Gary. Mike.
Yeah, I wanted to bring something up during the agenda review, but we kind of moved right through that. The last meeting that we had, there was an agenda item to discuss the Leverett-Wendell agreement, and the minutes reflected that that wasn't that opportunity to have that discussion wasn't there, and that that topic would be moved to the agenda for this meeting, and it's not on the agenda for this meeting. So I'm just confused as to how and when we're going to get to that topic.
Well, we knew well, I knew and Becky knew that the topic of survey results is going to take a long time. And so we need to talk about those before we really move on as a group. So that's going to be a large part of our discussion today, along with the interviews with the police department that were done. So it's been tapered to the next one. It was a decision on the chair to move it to the next one because of the discussion with the survey.
All right, so they can expect to see that on the agenda for the next meeting, is that correct?
When we talk about our next meeting and our agenda, we can bring it up for discussion.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Okay, moving right along. Does anybody else have any more public comment at all? Okay, so moving on to the survey results, we had a great turnout of surveys. I made a PowerPoint presentation from a report that I gave to the group today, early this morning. And so I'm going to put that up on the screen now, and I need you all to give me a heads up if you can see it, and we will go through it that way. So if I hit slideshow, I might lose you all, Becky. I'm going to have you help me with raised hands and stuff.
Okay, yeah, I'll do that.
All right, so I'm going to start the slideshow, and I'm going to share my screen first. In 1 second. Oh, it's right up here. Share screen. Screen 1. And 2. Okay. Share. Now I'm going to put up PowerPoint. Okay, Becky, can you see? Oh, we can see everybody on the side here. Okay. All right.
But I'll scroll up and down.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, so these are the results. Let me start the screen. Okay. Here we go. So we received 322 surveys that were dropped off at Town Hall. 7 of the surveys arrived completely blank and unopened from a mailing center. Those 7 surveys are not in these results. They were unopened and unused. And so first, I want to take a moment to thank the community for sending in all of those surveys and giving us the input we need and the focus that we need to move forward. I want to thank all of those that spent Thursday night and almost an entire Saturday here calculating and data entering 322 surveys. So I'm going to give a shout out, and I hope I don't forget anyone, so remind me if I have. I want to thank Tim Logan for spending all those hours with us, Susie Mosier, David Mosier, April Stein, Carl Launder, Becky Torres, Eric Stalker, and David Tate for helping input all of those surveys. It took many man hours to do that, and without them, this particular report and this particular PowerPoint would not be possible. So thank you all for that help and volunteerism. Okay, so on with the results. So if anyone has a question or want to make a comment, please raise your hand, and Becky and I are going to try to tag team that. So the number, we had something happen during the time where we were waiting for surveys to come back. There was a Nextdoor Shutesbury post that had the ability to alter potentially the results. So at that moment, we made two different subsections. One was those that were received prior to the Nextdoor Shutesbury post, and one that was made during or after that came in, just in case there was data that needed to be done further granular to figure out if that affected our results. Cheryl, I see your hand up. Yeah, I'll take Cheryl.
Unmute.
Yes,
There
thank you.
go.
I was just wondering if any analysis was done to see if there was a difference between the before and after results.
Yes, and I believe it did not affect it.
Good, thank you.
Mike, I see your hand raised. I see you
Right,
too.
so I'm the one who made that post on Nextdoor, and I believe it was pretty clear why I made that post. It was pretty much the fact that there was no information about any of these 5 choices that were on the survey. And I'm just a little concerned that my attempt to give the residents of Shutesbury a little bit more information is somehow being used in this survey as an attempt to control some of the input of this and everything. And
It's not to control it, Mike. It's to make, it was to make sure that the survey being out in the public without the post, or once the post was posted, it could have undermined the results and thrown the results into those 2 options that you posted on Nextdoor. That could have triggered some people to send in, or a large group of people to send in their survey with that in mind, where we as a group had discussed how we were going to send it out, what we were going to include, and we were going to wait for the results. I understand that you disagreed, but there was a lot of committee effort and a lot of compromise on all of our parts to present the survey as we had sent it out. And social media posts can have an effect on how results come in. And so we had to be able to mark that and see that if that was the case. That's why we have this data point, because of that. There was only 2 of the options that were on there. It wasn't all 5 of the options. So it was important to have the data points separate if we needed them. So this is part of the survey results that were tabulated.
but my point is that the cover letter basically had this, a short definition of each of the 5 choices with absolutely no information on what that actually means. And when it comes down to regionalization as one of the options, you know, why, for me to provide any additional information about regionalization, there's none available at this point. Never come to any a discussion of that with any more information. But the documents that I provided on Nextdoor were public documents that anyone could access. And it was just a matter of me informing people that they were available and they could look at them if they wanted to. So I'm especially concerned about the introduction to this survey that lists the fact that, not mentioning me, but says that the person who posted the Nextdoor posting was doing it because he is already already favors one of those options. And I really think that is quite unfair to have that in there. I'd like to see that removed. I don't know where we're going to be talking about the input to this document or whatever, but that needs to come out of there.
We can talk about that. We have a topic of committee best practices, so I'm going to push this conversation down to those. Kristen, I see your hand up, and can you save your comment for that particular, you just disappeared, moment? Yes, no? I can't
Yes,
see.
absolutely.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, so that's the first data point. And then the next one is question 1. So I'll just read the question real quick. Have you or anyone in your family ever been in contact with anyone in the Shutesbury Police Department? So there was 4 options. And one was yes, the family had contacted. Yes, the police department had contacted. No one had contacted, in the family had contacted, and then preferred not to say. So these are the results of that question. There were multiple respondents who selected more than one option to this question. So if you add the numbers up, they will be a little over 322. But I thought it was important when they mentioned 2 options that we had the data here. So are there any questions or comments about this particular slide? You guys raising their hand? No? Okay. I don't want to rush through, so if anyone wants a little extra time with these, let me know. Question 2 was a list of services, and we asked the respondents to rate them 1 to 4. And on the right-hand side, you will see the options that we had put together on our survey. There is one addition to this, which is blank, because several came in with no answer, and we needed to be able to touch that data point. So for the first one, response to emergency calls, out of the 322 responses, number 4 is people felt it was the most important here. So I'll let you sit with that for a second. We'll put this out online too for the public that are here. Okay. No questions. Okay. This one was response to complaints. So this is how our respondents replied to that particular, rated this particular response question.
I don't see any.
Visible police presence. This is how our respondents replied to this.
Yep, no.
Traffic control. This is how it was rated among those who responded.
Oh, and Cheryl has a question.
Cheryl, and then I see Melody.
Yeah.
You're muted, Cheryl.
My response was actually to the last.
Oh, okay, I can go back. Give me a second to remember that. Is this the one, police presence? Okay.
Yes, I find it interesting that almost a quarter of the respondents thought that that was not important. And I think that that's one of the most important things that police do. So that just goes to show that people have very different ideas of what the police are, what the function of the police department should be.
And later on too, when we asked the question of what people wanted to do with the police, coffee with a cop and such, it's funny what the presence in that one shows in comparison.
Yes, it's true. That was all. I just was surprised by this one.
Melody, do you have a question?
Yeah, and this is maybe not helpful, but you have 322 responses on each
Cheryl
slide.
needs to mute. There we go.
And I thought you said 7 of those were blank. So would it not be more accurate from a data perspective to say on the responses that it's 315? Because those are actual responses. I mean, you received 322 surveys, but really 315 responses, right?
I can correct that. That was, I can correct that. 315, right? We didn't have 327 or 329. It was 315. Correct.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
just-
Yeah, because we put them all in.
And
Yep.
then we took the
Yeah,
blank
yeah,
ones
you're
out.
right, Melody. We took the blank
Okay,
ones.
thank you. Just for accuracy's
And we
sake.
weren't sure whether we should keep them in or out at
Right,
first,
and we
so-
weren't sure. So we also just went ahead with leaving them in for now.
Well, I would recommend taking them out because they're not actual responses, especially when you're presenting this data.
Yeah, and that
Okay.
was part of what we wanted to bring to the committee. So
That's why we're
get-
talking about it.
Get your input. Thank you.
Okay. So here's the traffic control. I found this a little surprising myself. Where it fell right in the middle. Okay. Preventative patrol.
Almost the same.
Yeah, it is almost the same. So I'm just gonna go back. It falls right in that middle category. Go ahead, Cheryl.
I don't think she had any-
This one, actually, you know, when I read some of the comments, it became clear to me that a lot of people didn't understand what was meant by this. Again, I think this is really important, but maybe we should have done more to, maybe we should have put in a little bit more than just preventive patrol. People didn't understand what it was, clearly. And I have a question. You said that some people, no, never mind. That doesn't apply here.
Okay. The next one is investigative.
Seeing any questions?
Nope, no questions there. Okay. Building relationships with the community. This one actually surprised me. Well, sort of surprised me. But it is definitely heavily weighted and very important for our community. Okay. Any questions on number 2 so far? Kristen, I see your hand.
I think it's interesting that people are, there was a group of people saying police presence, but yet now it's a much greater desire to have building relationships with the community. So it's almost sort of like, you know, there's a amount of people saying we don't need police presence, but we want them to build relationships.
Mhm.
So it's sort of a little bit conflicted.
Yep.
There's 2 hands up.
I
Mary
see
Jo.
Mary Jo. Yeah, thank you.
So one of the study group survey results that I read from Montague had done some analysis of the surveys that correlated the comments with this kind of data. So for example, you could see in a spreadsheet if people who had no relationship with the police, no interaction, responded differently from people who
Well,
had
we can do
more
that.
interaction. Yeah, and I was wondering if there was an interest in doing more with that, or if that seemed like it was going to be practical, given, yeah, just is that practical?
I think, so my first thought is not sure exactly at our level, but certainly at the police department level, because this information on this survey has a lot of information for the police department that they might find useful. So that might be something that's definitely useful there. I mean, we can do some more granular stuff. I'm not opposed to that. So thank you, Mary Jo. All right, so question number 3. What do you consider to be a acceptable police response to emergency calls? So there was 3 options given, and there was still some people who did not answer this question. And I will show you that in a nice pretty chart. So here is a point where I think Melody was going with what she had commented on about adding the ones that were blank. So in all of the data that I put together, the blank ones that showed up that obviously were not used were removed. And each time we had a question, just for transparency and our analysis, I did put in the answers that were left blank by those that had filled out the surveys but chose not to answer the question. And I also made the answers without that in case that is something we had to look at. So in most cases, there are 2 pie charts, one that excludes respondents leaving it blank, and then one where they include them. I include them, not the 7 that were unused. Does that make sense? Any questions there? No.
People are
Yes, no.
shaking their head, yes.
Oh, there's questions?
No.
Oh, there's no
that they
questions. Okay,
understand.
that you understand. Okay, perfect. I tried to put all the ones that exclude on the left and all the ones that include on the right. So if anyone notices that's different, please let me know. I can alter this. So this is where we are with this question. Any comments on this particular question at all? Any observations? No? All right. Oh, Cheryl, you raised your hand. I can see you.
Yes, this is pretty overwhelming to less than 10 minutes. And if that's what the community really wants, then we have no choice but to have a local police department.
It does provide quite a bit of information. All right, next one is question 4. This one we asked, oh, Mike Vinsky, Mike, go ahead. Back one.
Yeah, just kind of tagging on what Cheryl was saying. So making a conclusion that based on people's desire for response in less than 10 minutes. So the survey is like 322 people, which isn't a real large portion of the population. And I think when we were putting this survey together, we were talking about the response rate and what would be wouldn't be reasonable to assume that the data we're collecting would be able to make decisions with. And I thought it was somewhere around 20%. Less than 20% makes for basically an invalid collection of data. And with 322 people responding, that's somewhere around 17%. So I'd be very cautious about making conclusions based on this data that was collected.
If you, Mike, are you doing the whole population or just the adults?
I've used like 1,800 people.
You're
I don't know if
including,
that's,
No, it's the official number is 1717. We have, about 250 children. So we do come in at 20%.
Okay, so you're right at the bottom edge of what's acceptable. So I'll stand by my comment. I think we need to be careful about making serious decisions based on this data.
Cheryl and Gary, I saw both your hands. Go ahead, Cheryl.
Mike, I know that I'm the one who made that statement and I should have been clearer. If you reach 20%, that's a really good response rate, really good and very representative of the community. There are many times when people do these kinds of surveys and they get something in the neighborhood of 5%. So 20%, you want 20% to make it representative of the community, which is what we have.
Right, just barely.
No, 20% means that you've got a good representation of the community, not barely.
All right, let's move on.
Gary, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that, the survey easily could have, one survey could represent an entire family. Not everybody filled out both surveys. So it's impossible to say how much of the town responded to this, except I think you could make a reasonable assumption that a greater percentage than just the sheer body count of families in this town responded to this survey. So I think that it's a fantastic response rate to get on this, and you guys should be very proud of your ability to engage the town in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Okay, let's move on to number 4. Currently, this is the coverage for Shutesbury, 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., 7 days a week, with state police covering 11 to 7. And Shutesbury's police chief, acting police chief, is on call 24 hours a day. And we asked people if this was acceptable. So yes, no, no opinion, and I added no answer given because some people left this completely blank. So our results are there on the right-hand side. You can see there was an overwhelming yes, that it's currently acceptable. There were lots of comments to these questions. I'm not putting those up on the screen too, that can be analyzed a little more in this particular question. Cheryl, I see your hand.
Yes, I was interested in the comments that came. Well, first of all, I was amazed to see how overwhelmingly people thought that this was the appropriate coverage for this town. But then I was very interested to see some of the comments. A lot of people, well, I shouldn't say a lot. There were comments that made it, that I understood to be saying that they didn't really understand what 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. coverage meant. And then there were a whole bunch of comments about how it's just not a realistic expectation that Kristen should be available to this town all the time, because they thought it would cause burnout. And I think that's a valid point.
There was definitely some among that had 24-hour well, among those comments. So yeah, it's quite an interesting question. Mike?
Yeah, I was really surprised at the response that we got.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, just a couple of things on this question. So, the question states that the police department provides coverage from 7 to 11, 7 days a week. And some of the data that I've looked at coming off of the police call logs indicates that there are a lot of shifts between 7 and 11 that are not covered. So to, to present this question to people with the idea that this is an absolute given is not 100% correct. And it's also, the fact that it says the police chief is on call 24 hours a day. As we were discussing the model that I was working on, that was basically an on-call model. It was brought up that you can't have someone on call 24 hours a day. So, again, I'm concerned about looking at the results of this particular question with those two issues and making any decisions based on that.
It's labor law. It's the type of position, so.
Kristen.
Okay, few things to address here. One, we all voted on this question. So if there were concerns about that, we probably should have addressed it back when we voted. Two, the reason that some of the shifts haven't been covered is because we have been stuck in a stagnant position with this police study group. And we are also currently in the Bridge Academy. And the Bridge Academy is taking up some training times. That has not affected us in any most certain way. And I think the idea here is that we provide coverage from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m., 7 days a week. And the on-call status that I want to bring back to you, Mr. Vinsky, is that I am not required to stay in town. And I am not required to answer to calls immediately and stay in town, which is where you come into the labor issues. You're telling your idea, and I've forgotten the name of your plan because it's changed 3 times. But your idea is that people are going to be stationed at their home. Their home would essentially become a station. And that's where you're coming into some severe labor laws, and it's illegal. So I think that's all. I mean, I could explain more, but I think it would be fruitless.
Kristen, thank you. Walter.
Yeah, well, Kristen covered the first thing I was going to say about that the logs show that sometimes people weren't available. Yes, we also keep in mind over the last couple of years, we've had a changeover of some people. Kristen's been trying to build the department up with quality people as as they become available. Some people hadn't worked out and they've been let go, or they resigned. That you can't fill that position instantly. It takes a little bit to run somebody else through. And the fact that she is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, doesn't mean she's responding to every call that comes up. It means she's available to be contacted. My contract, and has since 2004, requires that not only do I live in town, but that I am available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or make available somebody else to do that. So yes, it can say that because it does happen. It's in my contract and has so since 2004, and I am available for calls 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Thank you, Walter. Mike, and then we're gonna, Mike, while you're talking, we're gonna throw the pie charts up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not criticizing the fact that the shifts aren't covered or anything like that. I'm just pointing out that people, based on this question, are assuming that there's somebody there during all those 7 to 11 timeframes. And I have no problem with the shifts not being covered. I don't think there's times when absolutely every shift has to be covered. And for whatever reason, if it's training or there's just no one available, that's perfectly fine. So don't get me wrong here. I'm not criticizing the fact that there's not coverage on every single one of those shifts. That's just the way it was presented in this question that is troublesome.
Cheryl, I see your hand.
Yeah, I don't think that's an issue in this case because we're not in this survey, we were not promising people what the coverage was. We were getting their input as to what they think coverage, what they would like coverage to be, among other things. And so what we presented here was what our policy is in this town, not necessarily what happens every single day.
Shall we move on to number 5? Number 5 is, do you think it's important for Shutesbury to continue to have its own police chief and department? We asked the 4 questions of yes, why, no, why, prefer another option, why, and no opinion. I added no answer left blank because some came in with no answer and were left blank, not including the 7 that were unused. So here's the data from that question. It does show that of those who responded to our survey, there's definitely a need or want or wish to have our own department and our own chief. This gives us quite a bit of information. Does anyone have a question here before I go to the chart? I can go to the chart and then we can have questions. Raise your hands, please. I did pull out in this chart, I did pull out those that gave prefer another option. Why? Because the 13% on our chart didn't explain the choices people chose. So those are the choices people wrote in: shared chief. Some people wrote in shared chief or regionalized. Some wrote in regionalized or contracting. Some regionalized contracting. Interesting that there was very little for the Mass State Police or other option. So any questions or comments? I see Mike. Oh,
I got him.
got him. Okay. Any questions on this particular or observations? We can take observations, questions. I'll go to the next one too. This does not include the blank. Okay, go ahead, Mike. I won't move it.
Yeah, hey, I just lost the whole the
Okay.
internet feed and stuff. Am I the only one who lost it, or have you guys had any?
No, we had no problem, Mike.
No, but when you were talking the last time, you definitely had a moment where you froze.
Okay, yeah, and when Cheryl was talking, it froze and then it just dumped the whole thing. All right, I'm back. Thanks.
Okay. Anyway, we were asking if there was any questions or comments on this particular slide. I think you missed the, Mike, what I just explained. I pulled out the preferred other option because it was, there were smaller answers to that particular question. Do we have, you raising your hand for a comment, Mike?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I lowered that again. Sorry, thanks.
That's right. Okay, I'll move on to the next one. The next one is that includes. So this one has 65.67% that say yes. The next one, when you add in those blank ones that were left blank by responders, it does change it to 62.54% that say yes. But it's important to know that. So, okay. Any questions here? I'm going to move on. All right. Question number 7-1. If you were aware, are you aware of one of the services that provided by the police department is referrals to community resources available to Massachusetts residents? Yes or no were the answers. We did have some people leave it blank. So this was almost a clear 50-50, which was interesting to see. And I'll pop up this. So here we are. It's pretty clear. That's 50-50. It was an interesting result, I thought.
Any questions?
No questions? Okay, we'll move on to number 7-2. This is where we asked our survey respondents to let us know how they'd like to interact and engage with our police department, their families, or other residents of Shutesbury. And there were several options: coffee with a cop, ride along with a cop, civilian training sessions, attending town events, support community networks such as church, the SAC, PTO, Cirrus, interact with other town departments, interact with Shutesbury School, train volunteers, interact on social media, and other. So you can see the number results on the right-hand side. And there were some that were left blank as well. So we have that number. And I gotta make sure I edit that because the no disappeared. All right, here is the no on the bottom, disappeared. Oh, yeah, see it?
Yeah.
So here's the bar chart for that particular question. So this lets you know, kind of hone that in a little bit. I see it cut some things off. So does anyone, Cheryl, do you have any comment, observation? Go ahead.
Yeah, I found it interesting that the two that got the most checks were attend town events and interact with other town departments, which is not exactly community. Well, I guess attending town events could be considered community policing. I just was very surprised that those were the two that got the most check marks.
There were some in the comments, there was some interesting things like a bowling league. There was some other interesting things in the comments too. So there was more, people felt like sharing and shared other options too, which were a little more community policing, I think, than what we see here too. And beyond our choices that we had given. Susie?
I would say that the two that were highest are exemplary community presence and would help fulfill the community policing policy that we have.
I think so too. Susie, thank you. Anybody else have any other comments, overall survey comments? Does the public have any comments they'd like to pop in and share? You're more than welcome to. Mike?
Yeah, I just want to go back to the validity of the survey again. So if I heard Becky correctly, she said the adult population is 1,715. Is that correct?
No, what I said is the total population as of the census. The 2020 census is officially 1717. We know that 742 Shutesbury residents have been vaccinated. So we know that that census number is short of the total, but we also know that we have close, potentially up to 300 children in that count who need to be subtracted. Between 250 and 300 children need to be subtracted from the 1717 or the 1740 to get a number for adults.
All right, so there is no definite hard number of adults then. You're saying 250 to 300 children or something like that, right?
Are included in the 1700 numbers. So you have to subtract them out and it brings you below 1,500, it brings you below 1,500, which brings it in at,
22.
Melissa's math is 22% survey results.
All right, but again, you're saying that there's no exact count of adults or children, or whatever, because you're saying the children count is between 250 and 300.
We can work on determining that through different sources, but using the round numbers, we know we're over 20%, Mike.
All right.
Cheryl. And then Susie.
My overall impression of this was that we really got a lot for, we put a lot of time into this, but we really got a lot for the time that we put in. we got very, very useful responses to every single one of the questions.
Yeah, and I'm going to add to that too. The comments were very, very thoughtful. Lots of comments, lots of lengthy comments. So it gave what we asked for in the questions, and then it gave us so much more information, which I do appreciate from our community members. Susie.
I want to thank you, Melissa, for distilling the data into readable format so we can look at this. A survey is not the be all and end all. It's a part of what we're considering, but I think it gives us a window into our community beyond our own experiences, and that 20% of response lets us know that there's people out there that have various investments or experience with police, and we can think about what was said, and it goes into the mix of things that we're considering in other ways too. Thank you again.
Thank you, Susie. I appreciate that. Rory and Gary.
Hi, Rory Valentine here. I just wanted to second something that Gary mentioned, which I thought was important, that families may have filled out one survey per family, and I can vouch for myself that that is in fact what did happen in my household. I can say that my husband absolutely agreed with my opinions in this regard. So I feel like that's, if I'm one person who's at this meeting of a very small amount of people, it would be fair to extrapolate that I'm probably not the only household that did that. I think that that further validates our 20%. And if 20% was what was decided, then 20% is what it is.
Thank you, Rory. Gary?
Yes, I just wanted to make a quick comment that it's heartening to see the number of responses and the amount of effort that people put into, or thought people put into this. I think it shows the strength of this community as a community, and the central place that not only the police department, but all of our town services play in making this a community that people want to participate in. I'm very heartened by seeing how people have responded to this.
I agree. Walter, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to, again, the amount of surveys that came back, national average for surveys over the last 20, 30, 40 years has been anywhere between 2 and 5% when you send out surveys. So we've quadrupled. We've done 4 times what the national average is for survey results. Also, many times where people are satisfied with something, they tend not to take the time to put into a survey, say, hey, I'm happy with things are, I don't need to comment on that. And usually when people are upset about something, that's when they will make a comment. So to see such a large return, and then to see that, in many cases, people seem to be satisfied with what's going on by the results seen here, I think that speaks very loudly and does not in any way nullify the validity of this survey. Believe me, when I heard that you guys were sending out a survey, my thought was you're going to get nothing back, and it would be a waste of time. But obviously, you've got 4 times the national average, the high national average of return, and people have spoken their mind. So, I'm pleased to see that there was a good return, and that it's been, people have given them their choices, and that the validity of this survey should be looked at fairly strongly, because we spent between 9 months and a year trying to get this information now, and to say now we're not gonna validate it means that basically you've wasted 9 months of people's time, and I don't know where you'd go from here. So my feeling is take the information that we've got and go with it and do something about it. Finally. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Mary Jo.
So I definitely haven't seen the work of this committee as like in any way evaluating our current police department. However, I think it's very notable that from what I saw, there was only one negative comment about interactions with the police. And I think that's potentially a huge testament to what a good job our police departments have done over the years. Other surveys, you know, this was anonymous. This was the perfect opportunity for somebody who was dissatisfied to express that. And I didn't really see that at all. Quite the opposite. And also thank you for all the work compiling these results. It's great.
It was a team effort. There was a lot of data entry involved and we really worked as a team. And it was a nice little community thing in the midst of COVID, I have to admit. I do see Tim's hand.
Okay, sorry, I was trying to get myself unmuted. I wanted to say thank you to Melissa for organizing the results so well. I think efforts to try to discredit the results of the survey are disgraceful. I want to go back to Gary's opening comment. This committee has gone on for quite a while. And the longer it goes on, the more it has the potential for affecting morale of the police department. And I really would like to see this committee wind up as soon as possible. I think the results of the survey are quite clear. I personally don't think you need to go any further. It tells me people want a super fast response time and they are interested in community policing. And so I urge the committee to move quickly, take good heed from these clear results, and finish up the committee as soon as possible. And I agree 150% with Gary. Kristen should be our next chief. And I also wanted to take the time. There's a couple other officers online here who I have heard equally as good things about. And that tells me that what's happening is Kristen's building a team that is like-minded, is loyal and works together. We have the best opportunity we've had in years for an exemplary police department, and we should go for it and do it quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Mary Jo, I see your hand again. Oh, you're muted.
Sort of accidental that my hand is there, but I will share a thought. That just as a committee member, I found it very difficult to participate knowing that the work that we're doing, which I actually see as valuable and important, has been tied to whether or not Kristen gets hired. And I feel sorry for the fact that what we've done has taken so long, and that it's been hard because it feels like the committee has some stated objectives that do involve quite a bit of work and bring a significant amount of value. So when people say that they want our job to be done and over with, I sympathize, because I don't like to put our public servants under duress. And I don't want to waste our opportunity to have someone really good in a position. On the other hand, I think that the questions that we've been charged with are very worthy questions that deserve the time that we've put into them. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Mary Jo. Tim, your hand is still up. I just want to make sure that you mean that. Okay, no, that's fine. All right. Mike.
Yeah, I just like to say, I appreciate what Mary Jo said, and she stated it very well. We have a charge that we're supposed to be working through, and it's not about who's going to be the next police chief. It's about looking at different alternatives and what the community wants and things of that nature. So I personally don't feel that we're very close to completing that charge. And I would like to see us complete it and give it the amount of time that is necessary to complete it. So, you know, I hear the concerns about moving quickly and wrapping this up and taking the results of the survey and just, you know, moving forward with what that has looks like it's indicating. But there's an awful lot of other avenues and perspectives that the charge is requiring us to complete. We need to do.
I saw, I think in this order, Tim, Susie, and Mark. So Tim.
I thought I had taken my hand down. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Then I'll move on to Susie.
So I see on our agenda that there's committee next steps. And I too have some opinions from having gone through the process on the committee this far about what those will be. But I will wait to present what my concerns are and what my advocacy is till we get to that part of the agenda.
Okay, I appreciate that. Mark.
I just wanted to say a couple of things. One about the survey being sent out. Everybody had an opportunity to fill out a survey, period. The ones that sent it in were the ones that were interested in this, making their point. You got the survey. We've seen the results. There's no complaints against the Shutesbury Police Department that we're aware of with Kristen at the helm. What else is there that needs to be done? My brain is twisted here because I'm hearing this rhetoric about, oh, we need to do more, we need to do this, we need to do that. What do you need to do? It's in black and white. It's in front of everybody's faces. That's all I gotta say.
Thank you, Mark. Does anybody have any more survey related comments or questions, or shall we move on to our next agenda topic, which was interviewing with our current police department? Okay, all right. Susie, do you want to help me out here? Okay, I can bring it. Do you want me to bring it up on screen potentially? Would you prefer that?
See, everybody, all the committee members received this. I guess the public wants to be, we will post it on the website, but I guess I have some general comments about it. You might also.
Yes, go ahead.
For one thing, when I was writing it up, to write it up as a long narrative seemed not useful. So I wrote it up as a flow of what people said. So they're separated by commas. It might be different people. We interviewed 4 people and they, many of them had the same comments. So that's not, you can't really tell how many times something was said, but I would say overall, the 4 people were in agreement and they brought up some points that we had not thought about. I think to the person, they were positive about their experience in Shutesbury. The part that's hard for them is this process where they feel like they're under a microscope and they feel that the community is showing some some antagonism, or not, that's too strong a word. They were concerned about that. After listening to them, and now I'm going to give my thoughts about it. I think the delay in addressing hiring a chief with Kristen on board as interim chief is more wearing than I understood. And although we have a charge as a committee, and the charge was thoughtfully created by the select board, the kinds of questions we're trying to answer, I don't think come best from a committee of town people. I think we might have bitten off more than we can chew, and the net result of it is delaying addressing Kristen being in a full position hired. And that affects the other people she's trying to bring along. So how could those questions be addressed in a different way? I don't feel that this committee has been able to move the ball down the field fast enough. And so I feel that what I want to do is just pass along to the select board my observations. And I would recommend that everybody say what I learned when I was on the PSG for 7 or 8 months. And then let the select board decide what questions they want investigated quickly to sort out what options they feel are there. And I feel like that is the fastest way to get from where we are to the end. I don't feel a 7-member board has been able to go through this quickly enough. And the cost of that is to Kristen and to the 4 other officers and to the town of Shutesbury.
I'm going to jump in a little bit for a moment, Susie, and add, you did a wonderful job. I want to give a thank you to the officers for sitting down with us and for being open with us. And we realized that wasn't the easiest thing to do. And thank you. And Susie did sum it up really well. A lot of the comments too were about the current structure and the current leadership in the department. And I think that was important out of our survey. They have a very good community policing and community sense. So Shutesbury will be well cared for with this group, and certainly has been with our officers. There are some stressors with the PSG that we've added, and that's an unfortunate outcome of this, and not sure how we could correct that. But there are learning opportunities and such the group wanted to be able to do. There's flexibility. There's no boredom among the group. They've got plenty to do. They have the advantage of checking in and following up with the community in ways that help them feel passionate about their jobs. So those were just a couple of the other things that came out from when we were talking with them. And but the biggest thing was the sense of community and being part of Shutesbury, even though they don't live here, was overwhelming out of their answers. So thank you all. Mike, you have a question?
Yeah, Susie, I'm confused. You lost me there. I thought you started talking about the summary of the questions, and then you were talking about the direction that that this group should take. Is that what you're doing, or did I miss something there?
Yes, I said that we were going to get to it later. It's actually the next item after we talk about the survey. But I want to say that by doing the survey, by sitting down with the 4 officers and listening to them, it became very apparent to me that although we have been saying to Kristen, this is not evaluative, we're going to get through this. Well, it's taking too long. It is, I do believe that the committee approach did not work out. And when I thought about, and I was trying to explain to the officers the next steps that we would, the PSG would make recommendations to the select board. The select board would weigh those recommendations and make their own decision, and then put something in front of a town meeting if they decide that there's a different path to take. Then I realized this is way, way too long. Even if we finished up tomorrow, it would still be a long ways down the road. And that does not seem workable to me. So that's why I went there in my comments, because it was talking to the officers and trying to explain the process that made it clear to me that we are far from the end. And I don't think that's where we need to be.
Well, then I have a real concern. I mean, I look at my participation on this group as trying to not go with the flow, maybe bring up some other ideas, maybe bring something to light that the rest of us haven't thought about, and sort of the devil's advocate as far as all these things that we're supposedly trying to cover in the charge. And it's turning out to give me the impression that everybody thinks I'm just being a royal pain and just making waves just to make waves. And that's not my intent at all. I thought we were going to be doing an objective look at different policing alternatives and analyzing the benefits and the detriments to Shutesbury. And it seems to me that we're at the point right now where this whole study group is basically collapsing. There's nobody, the comments I've been hearing are generally to just wrap this thing up, hire Christian, and move on with life. So I've put a lot of effort into the things that I've done for this committee. If that is the case, that we're done and we're not gonna do anything further as far as looking at any other alternatives and just maintain the status quo, I'd like to know that now, because I don't want to put any more effort into this group if it's going to be for nothing. So I don't know if that means we have a vote tonight on what direction we're going to take with this group, or if we're going to end the group tonight or whatever. But quite frankly, I'm not willing to continue to do the job that I think I need to be doing for this group, and just having that effort be not considered or not wanted or anything like that. So we need to make a decision tonight, please.
Thank you, Mike. Just to one point, the select board created the group, so the select board is the one that's responsible for dissolving the group. Melody.
Yes, this will be brief. I just wanted to say I agree with Susie Moser, and I really feel like this has gone on too long. And I think that our current police department, as is, we're charged. We did in terms of doing a survey, getting community input, and I would just like to see us have some resolution. So I agree with Mike in the sense that I need to recommend something to the select board. I understand they make the decision, but I think we need to have some kind of recommendation. Thank you.
Susie, and that we could just make a recommendation on what we have. Could you confirm that? Melody, we couldn't quite hear you say that your speaker or microphone was dashing in and out. Can you just summarize that real quick?
Oh,
again?
sorry.
That's okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
So face your speaker. I mean, your.
Oh,
microphone.
sorry about that. Oh my gosh. You're asking me to remember what I just said. That is a pretty big request.
I know. I hear you.
Okay. Essentially, I just want to say that I agree with Susie Moser. I think that although it's the select board's job to actually disband the group, I think that and I agree with Mike, I think we need to come to some kind of resolution tonight. We need to make some kind of recommendation, because I do feel like this has not really, I feel like the length of the committee's term has not really been helpful to our current police officers. So thank you.
Thank you, Melody.
Thank you, Melody.
Cheryl.
I have questions about, I mean, we're not going to have time to go into them tonight, but I have a bunch of questions about the outcome of your interviews with the police. I don't think it's adequate for you to just summarize how you felt the interviews went. We need to know how many police answered each of the different, came up with each of the different points that were made. The results as presented to us were entirely inadequate.
It was a, Cheryl, the process that Susie and I undertook is the same process that the fire department undertook, where you ask questions and you summarize what they said. It was to
But
the
you
end.
didn't summarize it, but that's the point. What you did was to, in the written part, it wasn't a summary, it was just a running commentary of things that were said. It doesn't say how many of each, you had 4 people talking. We don't know if each of those were separate things from each one, or if there were things that, some of those were things that all 4 of them said. I mean, all of that information was lost. And then when you reported to us tonight, you didn't say anything about what they said. You said what your impressions were from what they said. That is not useful to us.
But the document that Susie and I created does have those data points on there. It's hard when you're
Yes,
in
but
an interview.
not in a
to
useful
put-
manner. We can't, you can't make any, all you can do is say, okay, these things were said. We don't know how many people said which of those things. And it was not useful information.
I do disagree. I think it was actually really good information. Susie, did you want
You're
to
the one
jump
who
in on
created it, so of course you think it's useful. I was reading it and I found it not useful.
So Cheryl, it wasn't useful to you. That doesn't mean it's not useful to others. I'm sure that if the police officers reviewed our summary, they would all agree. These are comments made over and over, but it might not be useful to you. The problem is, this is taking too long. And so answering Mike's question, what did I say? Or what was I suggesting? I'm suggesting that we write up what we learned. Each of us write it up and we send it forward to the select board.
Mike, I see your hand.
Okay, so again, we're back in the situation that I just was talking about earlier. I have several comments about this, the questions that were asked of the police officer.
You can ask them. We're still on this topic. We can ask them.
Well, I don't know what the point is. I mean, if we're not going to move forward as a group, I'm not going to put myself out there and, be made out like a bad guy again for this particular topic. So, it's, I think it's time to move on. I think we need to make a decision whether, the select board wants this group to continue now or not. Again, I'm just at the point where I'm willing to put myself out there and make some comments, but I'm not going to do it if it's just going to make me look like a bad guy, and it's not going to have any effect on anything. So, Melissa, it's time to find out what the direction is going to be with this group.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. I see Kristen's hand too. We definitely have that on our next topic. Go ahead, Kristen.
Well, I think that we're not at the next topic yet. And so therefore, surmising that it's not going to do any good if it doesn't go the way that someone wants it to go isn't helpful. I think it's very helpful while we're in the moment. We are in this moment of discussing their interviews. I think it's very helpful to ask the questions that need to be asked, because we're not at what are we going to do next? And those questions might you know, spark or create some more conversation. So I say, let's go ahead. Let's ask these questions.
Okay.
I don't have any though, right now.
Cheryl and Mike, ask your questions.
Okay, the first question is, which one of the charges does this question summary survey, which one is it fulfilling?
This one on the interviews for the police officers or the
Right. No, the interviews, yeah.
gathering information,
I'm sorry, what?
gathering information. We
But
said we
that's
told the
not,
public.
but
and
that's
we-
not one of the charges.
To find out information.
Well, the charges are pretty specific for different things, and that doesn't, I don't see where this particular interview process fits into any of those.
At the last meeting, the committee decided that we wanted to do the same thing that the fire department had done in the review of the fire department with Walter's retirement, that we wanted to also include the officers' input into our information. So at the last meeting, we decided and voted on taking this forward, and Susie and I were appointed to do that. So that's where that came from, in addition to, but I think it falls under gathering information, which is the overall charge of the committee. If I'm wrong and if someone else wants to correct me, please let me know. I will stand
Alright.
corrected.
So can you just run through the process? I must have missed that meeting or whatever. So who came up with the questions? Who was asking the questions?
These questions, the questions were the same ones used in the fire department process. We had decided that they were the questions that this group should also use, changing it slightly to fit, you know, police department, not fire department. So those are the questions that we had used.
So where did those questions, where did the fire department questions come from?
That committee had created those questions for the fire department. We used them and we voted on them in our last meeting as the ones we would like information from our 4 officers. And so that's where we used those questions. So Walter probably can answer, which I see his hand, and how they derive their questions. But that's what we did.
Yep.
Walter, yep.
The questions were derived by taking questions from other surveys. Many of those actually came from police department surveys and were with fire department. So it only made sense that, and those questions from asking those questions, they were able to ascertain what the people that are actually doing the job and working in the department feel that how the department is working. If you're trying to gather information
What are our needs, a listing?
from a lot of people that don't necessarily live the life and know how everything goes, better person to ask than the people that are doing the job. And that's what was done here. And the committee that was looking at what the future of the fire would be and what they should be looking at for a fire chief got a lot of useful information by the answers of those questions by the firefighters themselves. Therefore, it was suggested that they use the same questions to ask the police department to see how they felt things were working and how, because they're the ones doing the job. And so these questions were compiled from a bunch of different surveys, but most of them were actually police department surveys.
So Walter, you were on that committee. You were on that question committee then, right?
I was on the committee. I had nothing to do with asking the questions because I did not want them to be tainted anyway by me being there.
Well, I'm trying to find out. So these were fire department questions that were their transition to police department questions. So like, you know, who came up with who actually was able, the fire department committee to designate what was a valid question and what wasn't?
I'm not sure. I wasn't involved in creating the questions. I'd have to go back and look at the minutes to see exactly who it was that got that information together, but it was garnished from a number of different police department surveys. I mean, they're fairly general questions about, you know, how they felt about the operations, how they felt in their position, where they saw things were going, what they would see to be positive changes, what they.
Right, Walter. I mean, I got the questions. I know what the questions
Okay,
are.
all right. So I don't exactly know who wrote them up.
Well, that's what I'd like to know. Like, why, how are these
It
people?
came
that
from
came up-
others. It came from other surveys. I don't know who wrote the other surveys.
Does anybody?
I wasn't on the fire department.
Yeah, with a few months surveying and going back and asking questions, we might be able to find that. But the thing was, the questions were pertinent. That's what matters.
All right, so these questions came up, and then, so who actually did the interview with the police officers?
Susie and I.
So there's five, well, there's five officers and Christian on the police roster. Four officers were interviewed. Is there any reason why one wasn't?
That was Kristen, correct? We didn't,
So, there are 4 officers and myself.
yeah, so we didn't interview Kristen. We only interviewed the 4 officers.
There's on the police website, police department website, there's 5 officers listed and Kristen.
I believe that's been rectified.
Yeah, that was the Leverett officer who's resigned.
Who's the Leverett officer?
Megan?
There
Megan.
are 4 officers and me. That's why 4 people were interviewed.
We only did our current officers.
Well, so who was the one person who wasn't interviewing?
The person that no longer works here.
On your website, there's 5 names there. So,
And Megan Gallo no longer works in Shutesbury. It took, I believe at this point, she has been removed from the web page.
well, that's not one of the names that's on the webpage, and there's still 5 people there.
Ernest
All right,
Ernest Fitzel no longer works here, Mike. There are 4 officers that work here. We have Taylor Boudry, we have Nate Massey, we have Zach Warner, and we have Linda Newcomb, and we have myself. So I was not interviewed for obvious reasons. Therefore, the 4 officers were interviewed.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that information. And just one observation that those 4 officers have all been hired since October of last year. So they're all very new to Shutesbury, and they have only been working here for 4, maybe 5 months.
No, that's inaccurate.
How would that be inaccurate?
Because Taylor Boudry has been here for a year.
And Linda Newcomb has been
Been here for
here for
many.
about
7
25 or 30.
Yes, she's been working for the department for 7.
Under multiple chiefs.
No, she's been here since Tom, and that goes back.
Oh,
decades.
even further. Okay, yep.
Well, so the select board minutes, when Taylor was hired, indicate that October of 21, she was appointed. So is that incorrect? Is that what?
I think
what
those
happened?
I think the minutes that you brought forward to this group in the past were inaccurate. That is correct. Her hire date was March 6th, we believe.
And I believe her position changed, didn't it, Kristen?
I think that was the date where she became
Permanent.
32 hours.
Yes, yep. That was a
Permanent.
position change, not an appointment of,
Yeah, so it was not a new appointment. It was an appointment from regular part-time to permanent benefited part-time.
All right, so other than Taylor and Linda, the other two officers have been for just a short time then, right?
Yes, they have a great fresh outlook on the town.
I don't doubt that. I'm just, trying to figure out the questions and the answers, that's all.
Okay,
And those are my questions. I hope I hope it spurs some other questions and some other comments. Thank you.
I see Walter, Susie, and Becky. Becky, let me let Becky in first, and then Walter and Susie. Go ahead.
okay, I just was looking over the charge again, and it's pretty clear that most every question, while that we are looking for information about the police department. And we have been doing this for over 8 months, and we had failed to talk to any other officers but the chief. And we pumped the chief full of questions. She spent hours and hours responding and doing research and gave us invaluable, insight to the police department. But to round out that experience, the committee needed to hear from other people in the department. And I think it would have been a failure on our part to do so. Question number 1, what are the town of Shutesbury's public safety and policing needs? If you don't talk to your active police officers, you don't know what the answer to that is from their point of view, or what their experience is working in Shutesbury. Having taking the time to actually talk to our own officers was one step that we had passed over. We were deep in the midst of getting the community response from the survey, and it was pointed out that we had missed talking to the people that were interfacing with our communities. So that is the reason we move forward with the survey.
And I'll add one more piece, is that while they don't live in town, our officers are part of our community, and that's where their input is just as important as the surveys that came in. So Susie.
Also want to say that all the officers had some experience, or concurrently or past experience with other departments, with other towns, in other police departments. And that perspective played into their responses about being here in Shutesbury, because they could compare their experience from other places.
Gary, and then we'll go back to Mike. Gary.
Just quickly, from the charge for your group, a single sentence reads, the police department will be partners in this review. Until this survey was done, only one member of the police department was a partner in this review. And the other comment I want to make is you interview the police officers you have, not the police officers you wish you'd have. This is the pool of people you could talk to about how policing is done in town, and it was appropriate to speak to them. And I applaud the group for, albeit be it a little late, coming to that realization and making that happen.
Thank you, Gary. Mike.
So Chrissy, you said that Ernest Fitzel isn't working for Shutesbury anymore. Was there an exit interview conducted with him when he left?
I'm not going to discuss the employment of the officers at this time. If you have that question, it can be submitted to the select board.
I don't think it's a personnel question. It's just,
Yes,
I think it's a process.
Exit interviews fall
It's
under
absolutely a personnel
issue,
question.
100%.
Whether one has been done or not, that's not public information.
No, it's not. That's not public information, Mike. Officers' personnel files are not public information.
I'm not asking. Okay, all right, fine.
Gary, your hand was still up. Did you mean to add more, or were you good?
Sorry, my bad.
That's okay. That's all right. Just checking. Want to make sure. Okay, was there any other questions? Cheryl, you said you had questions about this particular interview process, so you can ask them now before you move on.
Well, I already pointed out what I thought was missing. I think the written report of the responses that you got was not adequate, and that it needs to be, I just felt that it was not useful information for me. And that in order for it to be useful information, it has to be more specific, not specific to who said what, but specific as to how many people said what, whether it sounded like they had all gotten together beforehand and discussed what they were going to say, or whether, I mean, just the way it was presented, there was no way of judging really where all of that came from. And that's what I thought, a great deal of information was lost.
Cheryl, I can say, and I'm going to put myself on a limb and say, these were the heartfelt answers of the officers. They were open and honest with us. And who said what or how many said anything. The fact that these statements were made by group 1 or 4, I think is still helpful information. This is how they felt. These are the answers they gave us. How many said X, Y, or Z, I don't think is helpful information to know that. The overall sentiment came across in their interviews. It was, and I believe they did not sit down and talk to each other about their answers. I believe everything was done on a honest basis. So that's where I come away from this. You know, but they were heartfelt statements and they were very candid with us. And again, how many said a certain statement, I don't think is helpful either. It waters down the intent and the behind the information.
The point, Melissa, is that all we get out of this is your impression and Susie's impression. We don't get any data out of it. And
but the questions don't have data. They were how they felt and such. How do you put that on a data point?
By recording how many people responded in this way to this question.
Yeah, you can say you can make that adjustment. That'll be okay.
Ms. Susie, would you maybe think about running through and see if we can make it a little more quote-like and such, or a little more information? Go ahead, Becky. And
I
then
just have a
Kristen.
suggestion that might help increase Cheryl's ability to absorb the information. If you just identify the numbers, you know, like 3 or 4 out of 4 each responded in this way, so that she just has numerically a sense of whether it was, you know, 1 person or 4 people.
I'm going to give a response to that.
Okay.
I'm a volunteer. It's not adequate for Cheryl. It's adequate for me. And this is exactly why we can't have a committee do this kind of work. So I'm going to tell you that my impression from listening and spending time with 4 people is there very much a consensus of what teamwork looks like, about what leadership looks like, about their feelings about doing this. Now, you don't have to believe me. Melissa and I were both there and we both had the same understanding of this, but I'm not going to sit down and count up the details and go through those notes. I already spent my time doing the interviews. I already spent my time writing it up. And we're not going to get some kind of perfect thing here. And that is what hangs up this committee over and over. And I'm not going to do it.
Thank you, Susie.
Okay, that is exactly why I didn't think that having you and Melissa be the only people who interviewed these the 4 policemen was adequate. because, you know, touchy-feely is very nice. It's not useful in this situation.
I disagree with that.
Maybe we can agree to disagree at this point. I do want to reassure you that I know the police officers were not in communication about any questions. The interviews were staggered, and you know, the amount of time that these interviews took was extensive. They were set up individually, so there wasn't overlap in people. Information on what the questions were was not shared. And I think it's a valuable resource that we have this information, this data. But to move on, I think the other problem is there's been a great deal of energy put out on the survey. Huge amount. I counted up over 60 hours of people's time. Two of the individuals that were helping with the survey were also doing the interviews. So the burden on their schedules over this time was horrendous. And I thank them for that, and I'm greatly appreciative. And I was there and I saw how much work they were doing, and pitched in where I could as well. But I think at this point, we're not going to change Cheryl's opinion, and we can look at this issue later, but I think agreeing to disagree should be where we stop.
One more, and then we'll move on to our next steps and our report. Mike.
Okay, I'm just gonna say, I agree with Cheryl, you know, reading those results of those questions, they don't, they're basically meaningless to me. And they don't really give me any information. So I agree with you, Cheryl. It needs to be put into a different format that's going to be more useful.
I'm sorry, Melissa, I know you said one more and we're moving on, but this is the exact kind of verbiage that is affecting the officers. I can take it, you can give it to me all day long, but it is unfair to say what they said is meaningless. And I do not appreciate that, because what they say is everything and means everything. They come here day after day to serve you, even when you don't want to be served. Cheryl, I need you to shut your mic off, please. Excuse me. I can't, the echo. Thank you. And I think that that's the exact thing that we're talking about here as far as team morale goes. I know them well enough to look at their faces right now and see that they just felt that you said what they said is meaningless. And that's all I have to say.
Well,
That is not what I said. I did not say that they were meaningless.
Okay, we're starting to talk over each other. So I think we're going to move on for now and maybe come back to this later or not.
No, Melissa.
Wait a minute. We can't move on.
Yeah.
We have to finish this up. You can't just cut me off like that. I never said that what the officers said was meaningless. What I said was the way it was presented to us, it was not useful. Don't put words in my mouth. I did not say that what they said was meaningless.
Mike, do you have a short comment?
No, I just, we couldn't end the way we did right there. And I agree with Cheryl. It needs to be different.
Okay, thank you. All right, moving on. We're now at the topic. We are starting to be over time, so we're going to take a little bit on this and next steps. So here's my thought, because I don't believe that there will be everybody, it will be consensus on next steps. And here's my thought about handling this. Why don't we each think about, for the next meeting, what our next steps will be? Think about the results of the survey and in context. And I think we decide what the next steps are then. Does anyone have an argument with that? No? All right, that will be our next topic. So if everyone can come with that list of what they would like to see next steps are, and we will hone that and decide on what they are at the next meeting. Mike?
All right, so how about a little bit more specific then? What, when you say next steps, what are you anticipating? What are you expecting from us? I mean, we're
Well, there are
working.
some opinions here in this group that we finish this up quickly and move on. And so we can, and that's one of them I've heard. I've heard some people who want to drag this on and figure out more information. But we have to think about what information we have just received from our community and our officers and the people that are here tonight that have spoken from the community. So those things have to be taken into consideration. So I think it's a little open-ended, I will admit, but I think what our individual thoughts are, and then we can hone our next steps. Now, one of the next steps is a report to the select board and some sort of recommendation or information piece for them. So that is definitely one of those next steps, and we'll have to be figured out how we write it. I did kind of like Susie's idea of what did you learn on the PSG, but we can talk about that. Those are the things that come to my head. I think we need to figure out what those are as a group and then compromise on those and figure that out. So I'll take input on that comment. I saw Cheryl, Kristen, Mike, and Tim. And Melody. Go ahead, Cheryl.
I just want to know whether we'll be able to meet in person next time, because I find this whole process really doesn't work, having one person decide who gets to speak and when they get to speak.
Well, that's what the role of the chair is, in person or on virtual meeting.
That's the role of the chair for the people who are observing a committee meeting. A committee means that the people on the committee actually get to talk when they have something to say.
In turn, not on top of each other. So it's still, you get to let me know you have a comment, or the chair lets you know you have a comment, and you get called on in order. It happens in person too.
This is not kindergarten. This is not kindergarten. We should be able to have an open discussion, not sit there twiddling our thumbs until somebody calls on us. That is not the way committees should work.
That's the way the Shutesbury does committees, with a chair, and that chair does do those things. Kristen?
Yes, thank you. I think that that's a fine idea to think about what we want to say and come back with that. But further, I think it's imperative that before we end this meeting, we discuss the expectations. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the reminder. Tim and Melody.
I'm unmuted, I think.
You are.
Just a suggestion, perhaps someone wants to make a motion on Susie's idea. And the other thing I want to say is to each of the officers that's listening in right now, I'm a citizen of this town, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate each and every one of you. If you guys were not here, and there was not a local police department, I would not have moved here. And the same applies to the fire department. The police and fire, to me as a citizen, are extremely important. And to have the option of a chief that has the sincerity that our current acting chief does, makes that even better. So despite what you guys are hearing, I don't really feel that the bickering you're seeing is representative of what the average person in Shutesbury feels about what you do. You know, in the middle of winter, when it's 15 degrees out and 10 o'clock at night, you're out driving in town, perhaps stopping somebody where you have no idea who's in the car or what you're up against. Or on another day, maybe you're working on your holiday and you're walking into a domestic strife situation. None of that for me, is taken for granted. I admire your abilities to do it. I appreciate your presence here. I appreciate the teamwork that is created by you and Kristen. So when you walk away from this meeting tonight, I hope you think and realize, in my opinion, the majority of the people in this town really, really appreciate you. And I'll be honest, some of the nonsense I hear coming in this committee, I do not believe really represents how this town feels about you. Someone can say that's my opinion, and that's fine, but I did want to express it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Melody?
Yeah, I just wanted to suggest that if our assignment, if you will, is to come up with our recommendations, I think it would be helpful in terms of our process for us to sort of write them down and send it to each other before. Because what I don't want to do is have us hear this for the first time in our next meeting, and then it turns out to be a 5-hour meeting. I think it would just really be helpful to have us write it down and send it to each other before.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think that's a valid thing.
Just
The
so long
one-
as there's no discussion.
Yeah, there can't be any reply or such. Just this is my piece of our homework, and that's it. No one can email each other anything after. Just send it out to the group. No responses to each other. Just want to get that out there. We need to follow open meeting law.
And that's great. And I think if we could have a deadline so that we get it like at least 2 business days before our meeting and
I
not.
think that's reasonable. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for the suggestion, Melody. Good one. Michael, and then Rachel.
I have 2 comments. One, I want to clarify the open meeting law. It's my understanding that you're not violating open meeting law if you are having a deliberation with less than a quorum of the committee. Is that what everyone thinks is correct?
One of the issues for open meeting law is any kind of communication that goes out, say on email, and then it ends up being a serial communication where somebody then talks to somebody else, just singly, not a quorum, and it becomes cumulative, and that is against open meeting law.
Those are two different things. If the cumulative aspect doesn't occur, then you can talk to less than the majority of the or the less than the quorum of the committee.
Becky, I think you've explored this. Go ahead.
I think, Mike, I think technically you are correct, but the way this committee has acted from the very inception, as we have, even when 2 members, when Kristen met with Cheryl to review the police log data, they posted that meeting. We have been very, very cautious over open meeting law because of the size of the committee and what the committee is studying. So I'm not sure if you're suggesting that 3 people get together and talk about their ideas, but that is something we have been discouraging through the whole 9 months.
All right, but it doesn't, 3 people talking together does not violate open meeting law.
3 out of 7.
Right. The other point I want to make is that I'm very troubled by some comments that are coming from people that are attending this meeting that somehow indicate that members of this committee don't value our police officers. That is totally incorrect and is not something that I want to leave this meeting tonight with that thought in anybody's mind. So I feel the people that are on this committee are doing the best they can to make sure that policing in Shutesbury is the absolute best way that, or the best avenue to do what we need to do. And it has nothing to do with personalities. It has nothing to do with how long you've been on the force. It has nothing to do with where you came from. It has nothing to do with what you look like or anything like that. So I'm very taken aback by some of the comments I've heard where people on this committee are trying to do the best thing they can for this town, and they're somehow being made out like they're bad people.
Rachel, Mary Jo, Kristen. No, we really should move on, but Rachel, Mary Jo, Kristen, go ahead.
I just wanted to support and go along with what Tim said, what Tim Logan said. My name is Rachel Schwab-Horka, and I am a town resident. I've lived here for over 20 years. My husband and I have raised a child in this town. And I absolutely cannot imagine being in an isolated mountain town where we have the entire Quabbin Reservoir on one side with no help coming, okay? And without a town, our wonderful officers. And I have personally chosen to interact with every one of them. I've spoken with every one of them. And I only have the highest regard for everything that they do, including that is my understanding that they were out in the snowstorm, hand pushing cars that had gone into ditches or off the road today. And I want to thank them for their service, putting their lives in danger. These officers put their lives in danger every single day, you know, and I can tell you as a former school counselor that domestic violence and child abuse happens in this town. And if you don't think it happens in this town, I think you need to do more research. We need our officers for that reason and for pushing our cars off the ditches in our roads. So thank you for the way you put your lives on the line every single day. And when you knock on somebody's door because you have a 911 call, you don't even know what's going to happen at that situation. So I thank you. I'm glad you're here. And like Tim, I would never live in a town without police officers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rachel. Mary Jo and Kristen.
So just to clarify, I think that there's some new stuff online regarding open meeting law and email. I went and looked at it recently and saw some things that I didn't remember about email being a deliberation. And maybe it would be a good idea for people who are wondering about it on our committee to do the same thing and look at that. But given what I read, I guess in terms of procedure, my suggestion would be that we send stuff to the chair and then the chair just compile it and send it out rather than having anything go to multiple people.
Yeah, because it could get chaotic. I think that's a good suggestion. So why don't we do that? Everybody send it to me. Safe. When in doubt. Right. Okay, Kristen.
This is just a reply to Mr. Vinsky. I think he has a missed opportunity there. He was saying that, you know, he's, not feeling a little uneasy that people might think that there are some people on this committee that don't appreciate the officers. So Mr. Vinsky, now's your time. They're here. You can tell them you appreciate them.
I certainly will. I do appreciate the fact that there's someone who's going to answer my call when I have an issue and everything. I know it's a tough job, and I know there's a lot of long hours. I know that you're away from families and miss holidays and things like that. So, you know, it's again, it's not anything to do with the individual people that are here, that are on the police force, that are doing their job. It's about looking at the town of Shutesbury and what's the best way for the town of Shutesbury to provide the service that that is required. So I'm very very troubled by the way this has all gotten into a very personal sort of conversation when we're dealing with things that we're basically dealing with providing a service to the town. But you know, there's people behind everything that's required to run this town. And you guys are doing a great job. And I have no complaints about anything the police department does. You know, it's you're doing fine, and keep up the good work. And you know, hopefully this is the you know, this is going to be a better service, a better policing service provided to Shutesbury as we get through this police study group process. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much. Okay, so I think we're good on that. Everybody send me what we'll do the deadline in a second when we set our next meeting. So to speed, next item real quick is committee best practices. I know this was, I guess the open meeting law discussion was helpful just now about that too. So we should all look at the open meeting law notes that Mary Jo sent told us to about. Thank you. And then the other what prompted this to go on was part of the first part of our survey, which is the Nextdoor Shutesbury post. And I had said we would talk about that a little bit later on. So my thoughts on that are when everyone has their First Amendment, and I would support that. And I do support that, whether I agree or not what people put out on social media or what they say. It's an American right and will always be. However, in the committee process, we talk about, we make compromises and we vote on things when we're in a committee. And the outcome, in this case, the survey went out. We all compromised on the questions, the process and such. And we're hoping for a result of unpersuaded answers, because we had decided on the front cover to give out a generalization of what it meant, because we don't know if we were to go forward what any of those definitions would be. We could follow models we see, but would that have been where we would have fallen? Who knows? When that post went out, it did potentially sway the public in a way that could have altered those results. So giving that, I would like to suggest, and maybe a best practice of committees, when someone, and I'll take comments on this, when we're in a committee, we make decisions, we compromise, we vote on things. Some people disagree, some people don't, or just some people agree, but we have a vote that has consensus in some way. I wonder if a best practice could be, if that person, the person who disagrees, going to Nextdoor Shutesbury and posting about it in a way that was similar to what had happened. That's my thought, because it made me, I will say it made me angry that I sat here and compromised for hours on end with that survey. Wasn't where I wanted it specifically, but when I saw the post, I realized the integrity of that survey was gone. The results were gone, potentially. It didn't affect it, so we were lucky there. But I worry, all of us, we weren't in a situation where we could answer that, Mike. We couldn't say, well, I agreed with the survey because of this. That would have been deliberation and open meeting law violation. So we were all very stuck. So those are my thoughts on it. I'd like to, in going forward in this committee, you can post, I'm thinking posting as a resident is okay, First Amendment is okay, but think about when you post that you're undermining the work of the committee. It undermined everything that we had done on that survey. And I don't think I was the only one that felt that way. Although I was the only time I could tell it was right here in this forum. So I can take, you know, anyone else want to speak to best practices and committee work, please feel free. Carol?
My reaction when I saw that on Nextdoor was exactly like yours. This invalidates our hundreds of hours of work that went into making that survey. And like you, I'm very glad to see that it did not seem to have an effect on the results. I guess that's all I want to say. But I was not angry. I was very dismayed when I saw that, because I thought, like you, I thought it could just invalidate everything we had done.
And we've seen it happen in the world, in the country. We've seen it happen. And I was hoping we wouldn't have that influence here. Kristen.
The fact of the matter is that we all voted, and we voted not to disseminate that information. And there were votes that happened throughout this committee process over the more than 8 months that we've been doing this that did not go my way. But I accepted that. And I realized that that is the group's decision, and I was not to go rogue. And I feel that after voting that we weren't going to disseminate any more information, putting that out on Nextdoor was a blatant disregard for the committee's consensus to not put it out there. And that's where I have trouble, because I believe in teamwork, and whether we agree or disagree on here, and my votes have not always gone the way I wanted them to, and I know everyone else has had the same feelings, but whether or not it goes your way or not does not give you, the decision-making power to just go, you know what, we all voted against it, but I'm going to just go ahead and put it out there anyway. It was unfair because no one was able to respond to it. And I think you knew that. You knew nobody was going to be able to respond to it. But I think that was just completely unfair. Moving forward from here, and, we recognize that was not a good practice. I think moving forward from here, I think that we need to be more careful of representing this committee, or any committee that you're on. You need to be careful in representation and how you're representing yourself. It was very clear that you stated you were on the police study group, and you were representing the police study group. Also an unfair thing to do as well, because that, made people believe that you were supposed to put that information out there. So I think in the future, and I stated this many months ago, I think when I gave my community policing informative, that people needed to be, if anyone remembers this, we need to be careful of how we represent this committee on social media. And that was exactly what I was afraid of that was going to happen. It was an unfair attempt at an advantage. And I think that people need to be a little bit more careful. And if it was wholehearted, if you feel that you were being wholehearted and you really just wanted to get information out to people, really should have realized we already voted on that. So thank you.
I see Mike and then Mary Jo. I don't see anyone else.
Well, when I made that post, I was very careful that it was objective and was stating facts and was providing information that was already available to the public. I get the feeling from this committee that you don't think that the general public can think. I mean, people can read that and they can go, okay, well, that's some information that I hadn't heard before. I appreciate having that, and I will either disregard it or I will consider it. So people can make up their own minds when it comes to things like that. And the fact that you think that I was trying to sway the results of this survey, it just doesn't make any sense. Again, there's nothing but facts that I stated in that post, and there's no reason to be there's no reason to be concerned about it. Do all committees have to march in lockstep with each other when a decision is made? I don't think so. There's the beauty of this is that you can have you can still, whatever the committee votes on, you can still have your own opinion and you can all have your dissent if you so desire. And it's no secret that I'm on this committee. So I don't see what the point is. It just it doesn't make any sense. I did nothing that was illegal or was underhanded or anything like that. I merely provided additional information that I thought would be helpful as they were going through that.
Shared and Leverett Wendell. Mike, I think in this case, what makes it the most poignant is that there was a survey out and the post was about information in the survey that we had voted not to put out in that way. So I think that's what it speaks to most, is that we were waiting for results from something out in the public, and it had a greater impact on results that way. That's the point.
I don't remember us voting that we were not going to put any information about the Leverett Wendell model or shared chief.
When we voted on the cover letter, we had voted on putting the information definitions that we had been using in our committee on that cover letter, and not go into linking to other sources, because we hadn't looked at them yet and we wouldn't know that they were part of our whether we wanted to go forward with them. We were getting the public's opinion on stuff. It's the impact that a post like that can have on the results we were waiting for. That's where, in this case, it had undermined the integrity of what we were waiting for results. That was the impact of this particular, and it also didn't allow for community members to be able to give their opinions either. So because of open meeting law, we couldn't offer any of our thoughts on the survey. We had to remain silent. And so there was an impact there, and the potential impact on the survey results, because now they would be given, there was an information pushed forward from one of the committee members that hadn't been decided on as part of our information gathering in the survey. That's so that it's the impact it could have had is, I think, where we're all coming from in this particular case. Anyone can post anything, again, First Amendment, but it was how it was represented and how it could have affected this committee and how it undermined what we had done and worked so hard to do to protect the integrity of the survey.
But wouldn't you, but if someone didn't understand shared chief, or didn't understand the Leverett Wendell model, or didn't understand the
we didn't
police
specifically ask about those the Wendell Leverett model in our, we said contracting, because contracting by definition in our cover letter was what we had put forth. And we were asking people to decipher and to think about those things. The Wendell Leverett model may never have come out the other end looking like that. It could have been something completely different. So people said, oh, that's something we'd like to do. It could have been, you know.
Well, so you're basically telling people you're not going to give them the information to make a decision because you don't want them to make that decision. I mean, if a lot of people had read what I put out there, those links that I put on, and go, yeah, this is a good idea, we should do this, and they selected that on their survey, wouldn't you want to know that? I mean, right now, you get back a survey that indicates that the status quo is what people want, but they don't know any different. And I can't believe that there's you know, that this committee wouldn't want people to understand all the options that are available.
Mike, the committee thought we wanted the information on the survey and we wanted the answers we proposed for the survey, so we had the data points. on the survey. We voted on what we put in the letter. I'm not saying we didn't want them to have more information, but we wanted their input on the survey we presented as we presented it. And a post in social media can have an impact on that. We see it across the entire country, Facebook and all of those other the social medias. One person posts something that maybe isn't accurate and people just pick up and run with it. It's a fact nightmare. And this had the potential to create that for the survey. It didn't. What I'm talking about for best practices is, in this case, the outcome was not as impactful as it could have been, but to have one of our committee members undermine it going to social media because he didn't agree with it, it impacts all of our work and it impacts all of our feelings, and it makes some of us mad that we couldn't answer and say, well, this is the reason why we supported the survey. I compromised here because I thought this was important or whatever. It didn't create a platform for the rest of us to chime in. We had chimed in the committee, we had voted in committee, but we couldn't do that out there on Nextdoor Shutesbury, because that's open meeting law violation multiple ways. So that's, I think, going forward, our committee needs to decide if something's voted in here, and someone doesn't agree and they want to post on Nextdoor, you don't do it as a representative of the committee in the way that might impact any of our work. You can offer an opinion, anyone can have opinion. That's what we're getting to here. It had a bigger impact than just a simple post, even because of the survey results. We really talked about the integrity. We numbered the surveys so that they couldn't be photocopied and 10 couldn't be filled out by each family to impact it. We made sure it was to different color. We made sure 2 got to every house. We had a mailing issue. We tried to correct that. But a post like this undermines all of that protection that we tried to get into our survey results. So I think that's part of, is it something the committee can agree to or not? But I think we had to talk about it anyway. I'll admit, there's days I want to post something on Nextdoor because I disagree with something that is in the committees I work in, but I respect the work and I respect the people I'm on the committee with, and I respect all of that time and those volunteer hours, not to undermine it in a public way.
That's fine. That's fine, Melissa. I just, again, I'm going to go back to the concept that I think people are smart enough to know what's valid and what's not, and that they read what they want to read, and they can adapt to it the way they want to.
Mary Jo.
So I want to speak as someone who's completely new to this process and learning what it means to be part of a committee. And I have seen 2 completely different understandings of what it means to be on a committee. There are people who I've spoken with on committees who will not discuss anything related to what was discussed in the committee outside that committee, beyond just a very passing reference. And, First Amendment rights aside, they always see themselves first and foremost as a member of that committee. And when the committee makes a decision, they represent that decision because they're a member of the committee. It doesn't matter if they agree with it or if they disagree with it. When they speak about the work of the committee, they basically don't, they're very, very careful about that. So even in casual conversation, they wouldn't say anything about how they felt about the deliberation, because they always see themselves as a member of the committee first and a citizen second. And they put their opinion below that first obligation. And I have to say, I do respect that. I have been part of a board that had rules like that. I mean, we basically agreed that we would disagree with each other, you know, till the cows come home when we were talking among ourselves. But when it came time to talk about any kind of decisions that we made, just to protect the integrity of the process of being a part of something bigger than ourselves, we didn't represent ourselves as speaking for ourselves. And we certainly did not represent ourselves as speaking for other group, you know, other people from the committee. I mean, the only person who would ever speak as a representative of the board or committee would be someone who had been given permission to do that by the committee and told what would be appropriate to say. And I think there are people in Shutesbury that hold themselves to that standard. And then I also observe that there are people who feel like they can say whatever they want, whenever they want, because it's their First Amendment right. And I would really like to have that clarified because, you know, it's two very different things. And I feel like when we talk like that, we do undermine the process of working together in ways that do potentially permanent damage to our ability to work together. So that's basically what I would say. And I would really love more clarification on that point, because I have seen two different ways of approaching this.
Thank you, Mary Jo. Kristen.
Well, I think that when we're speaking of the intelligence of the community, and Mike was concerned that there are people in this community that
You're breaking up. We can't hear.
Face the
oh, sorry.
Sorry,
There
we
you go.
just couldn't hear. Thanks.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think when we're speaking of the intelligence of the community, and Mike had stated that he was concerned that there are people on this committee that might not feel that community members are intelligent enough to decipher the post. I would like to retort that saying that I feel the community is so intelligent that they probably could have taken time to look at the survey and do a little bit of research quickly on their own or ask the questions on the survey. I think that it's contradictory to say, oh, well, I was giving them information because they're not smart enough to figure that out on their own, but they're smart enough to decide what I have to say, whether that's relevant or not. And also, this is just my opinion and my feeling that I've gotten to know all of you by way of the committee very well. And I would say this, had I done that, had I gone on Nextdoor Shutesbury, and had I put whatever I wanted, no matter disregarding anything that the committee has to say or have said, if I had done that, it is my firm belief that you would be calling for my resignation. I would be held to yet another ethics violation, perhaps. So I think that if we are going to be held to a certain standard, if I am going to be held to a standard, that everyone should be held to that standard in regards to this committee. I'm speaking specifically about the committee. I understand that police officers are held to a much higher standard in general, but I'm speaking specifically to this. And if we are going to agree that that is appropriate, that we can do that, well then, please let me know, because there is a lot of information that I would like to disseminate to the community by way of social media so that they can be intelligent to decide if what I'm giving them is something they want to hear or not.
Thank you, Kristen. Susie?
I would like to make a motion if the scene, and there can follow up with discussion because that's the way that goes. I'd like to make a motion not to use social media to represent the committee's work.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? Mike, you have your hand up.
Yeah, again, I'm going to go back to letting people decide on their own whether what they're seeing on social media is valid or not. And I also have a problem with the fact that once a committee has made a decision, that's locked in, that there's no further ability to present that to the public. I think that's been especially brought out with the Finance Committee, where at town meeting, the Finance Committee members don't always agree 100% on different aspects of what they have to decide. And it doesn't mean that anybody is trying to undermine the operation or anything like that. It's just a fact of life. And there's been a lot of concern about the people on the Finance Committee who may have a minority opinion about decisions that the committee has made and how they're able to express that to the rest of the committee. So I think it's very, very dangerous if we're going to try to establish a policy where once a committee has made a decision, there can be no further discussion about it or dissent about it, and that everybody has to get in line and march in step with the decision that's been made. I think that's heading in a very bad direction, and I'm not on board with that.
I think there are ways, and I think if I remember correctly, and I'm not exactly 100% sure, Becky, help me if I get this incorrect. They had done a process called a minority report, where the people on the Finance Committee that disagree can give a minority report. It's put in the minutes, and the committee votes on whether or not it goes forward in a more public way. I think that's correct, right?
It has to be voted on by the whole committee.
Right, to the minority report.
Yeah,
right, yeah.
before it's presented.
So
to the
they've come
public.
up with a way, but it also, that because it's discussed in a meeting, is in minutes and in the record of the committee. I know, Susie, you're on there, so please also correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think that is the gist and summary of how that happens. I think we could, going forward, it could be something that we could do here, having that, but anyway, that's just the thought. Susie, did I get that mostly accurate in that quick summary?
Well, also, we began to record votes by number. I guess I don't want to drag in something else right now. I'd like to.
No. I just,
Yeah,
yeah. It was just answering Mike's question of how, that there is a process and can be a process in a committee.
Yeah.
And it
All right.
should be a process, not a rogue decision.
Right, no, right. So are we ready to vote? Any other questions or comments before we entertain the motion?
Yeah, I just want to make one comment. That thing, Melissa, you just said that the Finance Committee has a minority report, and I go to a lot of the Finance Committee meetings, and I'm not aware of that. So if that's the case, then fine, but I don't think it is.
Becky.
It definitely was a reviewed process for the last couple of years. It wasn't done correctly last year at all. So that's, we've been working closely with a moderator to figure out the process, because one year it was just given without a process and was not done in the way that it should have been done. It just happened. Another problem is that what we're talking about with a minority report for a presentation is a totally different situation than what happened here. I mean, when what happened with your decision that you were unhappy with the survey, and to make sure everyone knew you were unhappy, was a critique, your critique of the committee from the outside. And it was done clearly as a member of the committee. And that's why other committee members felt dismayed and distraught at your decision to do that. That should have been a discussion with the committee, and there should have been a solution figured out within the committee. But there wasn't, and you were away when it happened, I believe. At least you didn't attend the meeting that was closest to the post. And so it's a totally different situation. I'm
Well,
not certain.
We should go back to this motion. It's gotten off topic. The
Yes.
simple motion is not to use social media to represent committee work. Other issues we're not talking about tonight, and it's why this committee takes so long. So can we go to the motion and stick to that topic?
Yes. So I will call for a vote. All those in favor of the motion on the floor, I'll go through and call the names. Don't raise your hands. The order, Cheryl,
Hayden, I.
Mary Jo,
Johnson, I.
Kristen,
Burgess, aye.
Mike,
Minsky, no.
Susie,
Mosier, aye.
Melody,
Mosier, aye.
Makepeace O'Neill, I. Did I catch everybody?
Yeah, Rita's
Yes,
not
did-
here.
Rita's not here. Okay. All right. All right. So
Did you
the,
vote?
I said Makepeace, I. Okay. So that vote carries
6-1.
for 6-1, you said? Okay. Did you catch that in the minutes, Susie?
Yeah, I do. I think it's one.
Okay, so let's move on to setting our next meeting. I see that we could have it Thursday, the 17th, or the Thursday, the 24th is the 24th is our normal one. Kristen, I see your hand.
I have conflict on the 17th, the 24th would be
And
better.
it's also, you have a conflict on the 24th as well?
No, 24th
okay.
would be better.
And the 17th is a holiday, so we have to avoid holidays,
Right.
evacuation day and St. Patrick's Day.
I think I have another meeting. but it's
Okay,
okay.
on the 24th?
Yeah, that's all right.
You sure?
Figure it out.
Okay. All right, so why don't we tentatively say the 24th? Let's see, in the office, out of the office. Let's say 5:45, just to be safe. Okay, all right. I think we've done a lot of work and we've had a lot of great discussion and a lot of discussion. So let's do the minutes next time, unless Susie is popping up.
I think we need to. do
No, we do need to pick the day, a date for when we turn comments into the chair about
Oh, yep, thank
our
you, thank
vision
you,
of
thank
next
you.
step.
So why don't we have it on
the 21st.
over the week, the 20th or 21st? I'll let you guys decide if you want us to 20th or 21st. Thank you.
21st.
By the 21st
Monday, the 21st, okay.
to Melissa.
To me. And you and I. Okay, all right, all right. Although, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So
I make
move.
the motion to adjourn.
Oh, okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second,
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. I'll go with Melody.
Mosier, aye.
Kristen,
Burgess, aye.
Mike,
Minsky, aye.
Mary Jo,
Johnson, I.
Susie,
Mosier, aye.
Carol,
Hayden, I.
Makepeace O'Neill, aye. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for attending.
Thank you.